Welcome to Home Pool and welcome to Between the Lines, the Journeyman's Tale. I fished Home Pool for the first time in the spring of 2015 after it had changed from a syndicate to a bookable water, and I was lucky enough to catch a few of the pool's prized residents. After that successful week's angling, I was asked if I wanted to join the winter syndicate. That winter the fishing was hard and I only managed to land a couple of small fish. I think it was that winter that Terry Hearn started bagging up on wading. Strange old game, carp angling, isn't it? Unfortunately, just after I'd paid for the second winter, I was diagnosed with the first of the cancers and I never fished Home Pool again. Anyway, as part of the Still Alive and Kicking tour, which I began a couple of years ago, I was delighted to find that Home Pool still had a few days available in October, so I booked it immediately and then invited an old friend to join me. Strangely, that night I struggled to sleep with excitement, like a 65-year-old kid waiting for Christmas, which of course was ridiculous. The next thing you know, I was getting countdown messages from said friend. 3 weeks and 2 days. 2 weeks and 6 days. Not just me then, I'm glad to say. Well, we've just arrived, got all the gear out, camps are set up and we're raring to go. Good morning and welcome to Home Pool. We arrived yesterday, Carey and I, about 8 o'clock. Managed to get the camps all set up, the rods sorted, baited, all the necessary stuff, and then it tipped down with rain, and it tipped down with rain all day long virtually, and for most of the night as well, and didn't really appear to stop till about 4 o'clock this morning. Needless to say, it was a quiet night on the fish front. We did have a bit of early evening entertainment from the farmerhead doing a bit of hedge cutting, which was a bit of a shock to the system since we're in the middle of nowhere and it's quite quiet. Anyway, there's been a few fish seen cruising around, and there's a bit of bubbling going on down at Carey's end of the lake, so hopefully it won't be long before we'll have something on the bank and nice fish to show you. Anyway, as soon as it all kicks off, I'll get back to you. Got a break in the rain, so I've been able to try and do a bit of camera. I've had a few requests about the rigs I'm using and the setups. Well, I've done a few of the rig ones before, mainly to do with the barbless setup, but it's not barbless hooks on Home Pool. So my go-to is a curved hook. I use a size 4 these days, with a wafter on it attached to a ring swivel, hook ring swivel, and it's flossed on. Now I used to just blob it with a lighter, but for some strange reason the last couple of trips they've been disappearing. Whether that's crayfish or not, I have no idea. Anyway, so I've gone back to putting a rig stop on there and melting over the top of that. I'm a great fan of the trans khaki that Fox are using, and their Camotex hook links. So I use the Camotex hook link in the green. There's a small kicker on there, a liner if you like, in the trans khaki. And as I say, my preferred hook is a curved shank. So that would be my go-to hook. Now I have been using pop-ups in tandem with them on at least one of the rods, but for the last few trips all the pop-ups have been totally ignored, and they've either come on wafters or they've come on bottom baits, but most of the time they've come on wafters, so I'm fishing wafters on this particular trip. As regards to the setup, my go-to would be a rotary rig, and given the choice I'd use pin down, although somebody has put me onto the Kristen stuff. The pin down can be a little bit fiddly to splice, but I don't know, if you persevere with it, it seems okay. I use that in about, I don't know, just under a metre in length. I use the HeliSafe drop-off lead system that Calder produced. Now you can either fish that so the lead drops off, or you can add a clip to it to stop the lead from dropping off. Well, I always fish it so the lead drops off. The more astute amongst you will notice that I've put an extra little bead on there. That's just to slow down the dropping off process, if you like. It still drops off, but it doesn't go off instantly, so there's got to be a fair old tug on there for it to come off. Drop off bead system. Now I use the system that Calder have designed for using on a naked, not the ones they provide for lead core system. I find you get a better fit on it. That would be my go-to choice, but a lot of waters have banned braid type leaders and will only allow you to use tubing, and I've messed around with it a while and tried to make some interpretation so I could still use the HeliSafe, but then Calder brought out these adapted HeliSafes for the tubing. I think they're off the market now because they couldn't get the drop-off system to work. Well, I've found that if you just put a bit of silicone tubing on the tubing, you can still use the drop-off bead, so it's nice and safe. So that would be my secondary choice. And you'll notice maybe that I actually paint them. Maybe that's OCD, I don't know. But I like the ESP tubing. I think it's nice and flexible and heavy. But I tend to buy the grey or the green, and I paint them to suit the bottom I'm using. Them most of the time I'm fishing local syndicate with a clay bottom, so I just change the colour a bit and put a bit of green on there to represent the bottom. I also do exactly the same with my leads, and always have done. So I'm making my own leads 90% of the time. I'm either fishing on gravel or just off gravel or on a clay bottom. And if I'm fishing on silt, then I'll change the colour again completely, but 90% of my fishing that is used. Now on home pool, David doesn't like you dropping leads off particularly. He doesn't want you to fish with a fixed rig, but doesn't want you dropping leads unnecessarily. So for this trip I've gone on to the normal lead clip, so that it will come off should anything untoward happen, but it's just not going to drop off instantly. And again, it's ESP tubing because you're not allowed to use leaders or any sort. And again, I've just sprayed a bit of paint on there to represent the clay bottom that I'm fishing over, so it's a little bit more concealed, and anything to do with trans khaki I'm more than happy with. So that's basically it. Hope that helps and answers the questions that you've been asking. Well, we've now got to the second afternoon, and there's been a break in the weather. Fortunately, the sun's now out. There's a bit of blue sky up there, and I've moved swims. After about 12 hours of torrential rain yesterday, top end of the lake by the house has really started colouring up, and Dave, the owner, said that they just don't like it when it becomes that coloured, so I moved down towards Carey. I'm in the middle of the lake now, which is not as bad as it is at the top end. Just moved everything, put some bait out, got the rods all sorted, and just sat down for a cup of coffee. But, there's the odd fish showing up the top end where Carey is, but they're not getting their heads down seriously, and he can't do any more than he's doing, but they're just not having it. But we've still got a bit of time left, so fingers crossed we don't get too much more rain. Maybe the water will start fining down a bit, and maybe the sunshine will inspire them to get their heads down. I haven't taken the water temperature, but I might do that because it couldn't have been particularly good, all that rain coming in, cooling it down. Anyway, enough of the excuses. We haven't caught. Fingers crossed that we still do. There's a lot to be said for having a microwave on site. Makes it a nice change from the Ridge Monkey stir fries. Well, nothing exciting to report, unfortunately. Another quiet night, although the rain kept off for the bulk of it. I did get a couple of bleeps, but nothing exciting happening from it. Did start raining first thing this morning, but it's dried up now. It's supposed to be dry for the rest of the day, but they obviously taken a dislike to this chocolate coloured water that we've now got through the bulk of the water. Still bit of bubbling going up in the far bay where Carey is, but they're obviously not responding to any bait that's going in. But we'll keep plugging away and hope something eventually happens. Well, we're slowly heading towards the third evening. I'm losing track of time a bit, and it's a real struggle. I've got the rods spread out a bit now, 1 in each swim if you like, trying to find some fish, and they're just not showing at the moment. The colour I suppose is dropping out a little bit because we haven't had any rain today, but they're just not showing. Can't see anything. There's a big koi in here that's fairly easy to track when it's out and about, but can't find it. Haven't seen it all day. Carey's had a small tench which woke him up a bit. Other than that, it's pretty desperate really. It's been a fairly nice day. It's pretty calm, sun's been out a bit, wind's not too bad, but heaven knows where all the fish are hiding. And they're certainly not feeding, or certainly not feeding with any gusto where we're putting bait, put it that way. Anyway, we'll see what tonight brings.
There you go, 27 £5 ounce zip linear home pool. We didn't think that was going to happen, did we?
No, we didn't.
What's this, third day's the Thursday with you on the Monday?
Yep.
And all to show there's a tench until this, 2:30 in the morning on a water that doesn't produce fish at night apparently, so back in the trend. There you go, chuffed to bits of this one.
Tell me how beautiful she is and how much does she weigh?
As pretty as you, Paul.
Thank you.
27.5, new British personal best, would you believe? Been tench fishing a bit lately.
Barry, you were asking me what bait I'm using. Well, it's CC Moore's Pacific tuna, but I rolled it myself, and as you would suspect, I put a few extras in of my own, one of which is a bit of N-butyric acid. The other bits and pieces will remain with me. But unless you want a blank, I wouldn't recommend it. Because there's not a lot happening on it at the moment. But come next month, I'll change to something a bit more milk based. But then again, that won't be off the peg, it'll be with a few additives of my own. There you have it. Well, all too quickly we've come to the final morning and it's time to slowly start packing away. Another very quiet night for the pair of us. Not a lot of action going on apart from the rain, which was incessant, and the water table is well and truly flooded now. The pathways are all squidging up the treat, so in some regards it's probably a good thing that we've come to the end of our time. As for me, well, I blanked, and you know me, I hate blanking, but it was a joy on the positive side to be with an old friend and catch up and spend a bit of time together and witness him catching his UK personal best. This is a guy who's had 60 pounders in foreign parts, but I was with him when he caught his UK personal best, so that was a privilege for me. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I'll catch you all again soon. Cheers for now. Barry, you were asking what bait I'm using. Well, it's CC Moore's Pacific tuna. Oh, the hell with this.